The city streets were slick from an early morning drizzle, steam rising from storm drains and mingling with the faint smell of gasoline and fried food from a nearby diner. A small boy, no older than 10, crouched behind a dumpster, shivering in a tattered hoodie that had once been grey but was now a faded shadow of fabric. His eyes darted nervously, scanning the street for anyone who might notice, or stop, him. At that moment, the rumble of motorcycles tore through the alley, engines echoing off the brick walls like thunder. Leather jackets glinted under the streetlights as a dozen Hell's Angels cruised by, their presence commanding attention, every movement radiating loyalty, power, and discipline. The boy's stomach growled. He had gone days without a proper meal, and the worn jacket slung across one biker's shoulder, black leather, polished, embossed with the chapter insignia, looked like warmth, safety, and status all at once. Desperation clouded his judgment. He edged closer, fingers trembling, eyes fixed on the jacket. Before he could act, the biker, tall, broad-shouldered, with a streak of grey in his hair and a name patch that read Hawk, noticed the movement. He froze mid-step, hand resting on the jacket. The boy flinched, caught in the act, eyes wide with guilt and fear. "Hey," Hawk said, voice low but calm, carrying authority without aggression. "What are you doing there, kid?" The boy's lips quivered. I'm cold. Hawk crouched slightly, keeping his voice gentle yet firm. "I can see that. But stealing my jacket isn't the way. Tell me why." The boy's hands shook as he fumbled with the hem of the jacket. I don't have anywhere to sleep. I haven't eaten. My mom, she left." His voice broke into a whisper. Tears streaked down his dirt-smudged cheeks. I just wanted something to keep me warm." The chapter members, previously leaning casually on their bikes and chatting, fell silent. Every one of them froze, the rumble of engines dying down to a hushed hum as Hawk's words carried weight. A stolen jacket was nothing, but the reason behind it revealed a truth that struck at their core. Hawk gently placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "You don't have to do that," he said quietly. "Nobody deserves to be cold or hungry, kid. But you have to trust someone first. Can you do that?" The boy nodded hesitantly, unsure if trust was possible in a world that had been harsh and unyielding. Around them, the chapter members exchanged glances, silent communication among brothers, a collective decision forming without words. They had faced countless threats, stood up to violence and chaos, but this was different. Hawk stood, brushing rain from his jacket. "All right," he said, addressing the group. "We do this the right way. Nobody gets left out in the cold. Not on our watch." The boy blinked, incredulous, as another biker, rider, younger, with a soft but commanding presence, produced a thermos from his bike pack and held it out. "Soup," he said simply. "Eat first. Jacket later." A small, incredulous smile crept across the boy's face. For the first time in days, he felt something resembling hope, warmth, and belonging. The chapter's silence had shifted into action, a quiet testament to loyalty, moral strength, and the courage to act when someone is helpless. The rain continued to fall lightly, but the boy no longer shivered as much. Something far greater than warmth had arrived, a family of bikers, united in protection, understanding, and the unspoken promise that nobody would face the world alone while they stood vigilant. Hawk looked down at the boy. "Tonight, you ride with us. You're not alone anymore. But first, we figure out what you really need. Warmth isn't just leather." The diner's neon sign flickered as the group stepped inside, leather jackets dripping with rain, boots squeaking lightly against the worn tile floor. The smell of frying bacon and strong coffee wrapped around them, a sharp contrast to the damp alley outside. The boy followed hesitantly, eyes wide as he took in the biker's calm, commanding presence. Ryder led him to a corner booth, pulling out a chair for him, while Hawk ordered a steaming bowl of soup and toast. The boy's hands trembled slightly as he tried to contain his excitement, the sensation of warmth brushing against his fingers, a comfort he hadn't felt in weeks. "You've had it rough," Hawk said quietly, sliding the soup across. "Cold streets, empty stomach, nobody should have to go through that alone." The boy's voice broke as he whispered, I didn't mean to steal your jacket. I didn't know what else to do. Ryder leaned forward, placing a steady hand on the boy's shoulder. We know, kid. And you're not in trouble. Stealing comes from fear, not malice. Tonight, you learn that asking for help is stronger than taking what isn't yours. Around the booth, the rest of the chapter observed silently, some nodding in subtle agreement, others leaning against the wall with quiet smiles. Each member understood the weight of the moment, one small life hanging between fear and hope, reshaped by the decision to act with moral courage rather than judgment. As the boy ate, Hawk watched him carefully, noting the way his hands shook less with each bite. You've been surviving on the streets alone, he asked gently. The boy nodded. I stay in alleys, sometimes under bridges. I try not to bother anyone, but sometimes it's too cold, or I'm too hungry. His words trailed off, eyes fixed on the bowl of soup as if it were a miracle. Ryder gave him a small smile. We see you, kid. And now, you don't have to do this alone anymore. There are people who will look out for you, people who've got your back. The boy's lips quivered, the weight of isolation slowly lifting. He realized that the bikers weren't just offering warmth and food, they were offering something far greater: safety, trust, and a chance to belong. Hawk turned to the chapter. We've all faced dark streets in our lives. Violence, threats. But nobody should have to survive without guidance, without someone who cares. Tonight, we make sure he knows loyalty isn't just words. It's action. The bikers leaned in closer, their presence solidifying into a circle of protection. No one spoke unnecessarily. The moral weight of their decision hung in the air, stronger than any spoken threat. The boy felt it, even if he didn't fully understand. This was a family that had chosen to stand for him. Outside, the rain had slowed to a drizzle, and the neon glow reflected off the puddles like scattered stars. The boy finished his soup, savoring every spoonful, eyes bright with wonder. I never had anyone do this for me, he whispered. Ryder ruffled his damp hair gently. Now you do. And tomorrow, we figure out the next step. You're not alone, not now, not ever. Hawk added quietly, remember this, courage isn't always about fighting. Sometimes, it's about showing up, feeding someone, protecting them, and giving them hope when the world tells them there's none. The boy's small smile widened slightly. For the first time in weeks, he felt seen, valued, and safe. The chapter's silence had turned into meaningful action, and the city itself seemed to hold its breath, recognizing that this small act of kindness carried a ripple far beyond the diner's walls. The rain had stopped entirely, leaving the streets wet and glistening under the dim glow of early morning streetlights. The boy, now named Micah by the chapter, stepped hesitantly out of the diner, his small frame bundled in a borrowed leather jacket that had been offered to him, slightly too big, but warm and protective. Kane, Hawk, Ryder, and the other bikers flanked him, their presence an unspoken shield as they moved cautiously through the city. Micah's eyes darted to every corner, every shadow, remembering the nights he had spent alone, cold, hungry, and unseen. Now, surrounded by these towering figures, he felt a strange mix of awe, fear, and burgeoning trust. For the first time, someone larger than him was watching his back, not with judgment, but with moral strength. Hawk led the way down a narrow street, voice low but steady. Micah, the streets haven't changed, but you can. You're learning that you're not alone, and that's powerful. But part of staying safe is understanding who the danger is and how to navigate it. As they passed a graffiti-covered alley, a group of older teens jeered, mocking the boy and pointing at his oversized jacket. One of them stepped forward, fist clenched, clearly looking for a fight. Kane's hand rested lightly on his holster, though there was no weapon, just a subtle display of authority. Leave him alone, Kane said, voice calm but carrying weight. This kid's not your toy, and you're not worth the trouble. The teens faltered under the gaze of the bikers, unsure whether to challenge 50 pairs of eyes and the quiet authority that radiated from their leathered forms. With a reluctant sneer, they backed away, muttering under their breath, disappearing into the maze of streets. Micah stared, wide-eyed. You didn't even touch them. Ryder crouched beside him. Courage isn't always about throwing punches. Sometimes it's about standing in the right place, showing loyalty, and letting the world know that the weak aren't easy targets. The boy nodded slowly, absorbing every detail. His trust in the chapter grew, not because they had fought, but because they had stood, unwavering, for him. They continued through the streets, Hawk narrating softly. These streets are full of people who look the other way. But every choice we make matters. Standing up for someone isn't just an act of courage, it teaches others what's right. And tonight, you'll see that. Micah's small hands fidgeted in his pockets as he asked hesitantly, Will you always be around? Watching. Hawk's eyes softened. Not always. But you'll remember this night, and that will guide you. And if the streets try to challenge you again, you'll know what courage and loyalty look like. You'll know that there are people willing to stand with you, and that makes all the difference. As they reached a corner overlooking the city, the neon glow of distant signs reflected in puddles and rain-streaked windows. The bikers fell into a protective semicircle around Micah, their presence silent but formidable. Here, in this quiet moment, he understood that family wasn't just blood, it was loyalty, moral courage, and the willingness to act for someone who couldn't protect themselves. Ryder extended a hand, helping Micah onto his Harley, letting him feel the vibrations beneath his small fingers. Ride with us, he said gently. Feel the strength of loyalty, even through the streets that have tried to hurt you. Trust builds here, and you're part of it now. Micah's eyes sparkled with tentative hope as he climbed onto the bike. The city around them, once intimidating and harsh, now seemed navigable, a place where courage and protection could carve safe spaces, even for someone small and overlooked. Hawk placed a hand on Micah's shoulder, voice firm but kind. Remember, Micah, trust those who act with moral strength. Fear is temporary. Courage, loyalty, and protection last longer than any cold night. The engines roared softly as the chapter moved through the streets, every turn, every glance, every gesture teaching the boy a vital lesson. The world could be harsh, but courage, loyalty, and compassion could transform even the bleakest streets. The city hummed quietly beneath the morning haze, sunlight struggling to cut through the thin clouds. Micah sat astride a Harley, gripping the worn leather with a mix of awe and nervous energy. Around him, the chapter moved in seamless formation, engines vibrating like a heartbeat of protection, every biker radiating both strength and unwavering moral purpose. Hawk glanced at the boy, voice calm yet resonant. Loyalty isn't just about standing together in a fight. It's about watching out for each other, even when no one's looking. It's about doing the right thing when it's hard, when it's inconvenient, or when no one would even notice. Micah nodded slowly, absorbing each word. The city streets, once hostile and frightening, now passed under his gaze like a classroom of life lessons. He could see danger everywhere, a broken bottle, a group of teenagers loitering, but the biker's presence made every shadow less threatening. Ryder leaned toward him. You see, kid, these streets teach hard lessons, but family can show you something stronger, that even in the toughest situations, loyalty and courage matter more than fear. We've got your back. Always. They stopped at a corner where a stray dog whimpered, trapped by a pile of trash. While some would have passed, Hawk knelt, coaxing the dog gently. Sometimes loyalty isn't just to people, he said, it's to life itself. Protecting the weak is a responsibility, no matter their size. Micah's eyes widened. You help everyone. Hawk smiled faintly. Everyone who needs it. That's what family does. Not because they have to, but because it's the right thing. And it's why we're here for you. As the bikers continued through the streets, a group of local teens approached, testing boundaries, their posture aggressive. Kane stepped forward, silent but firm, the rest of the chapter fanning out like a protective wall. The teens faltered, unsure whether to challenge 50 eyes and 50 hearts of unwavering resolve. Micah gripped the bike tighter. They won't hurt anyone, he whispered. Ryder chuckled softly. They won't try. But if they do, they'll meet more than force. They'll meet moral strength and loyalty, things stronger than fear. That's the real power of a brotherhood. The boy looked around at the bikers, Jace, towering and silent, Hawk, with grey streaks and a commanding presence. Raven, whose calm eyes radiated understanding. These were people who had faced chaos, danger, and darkness, and yet here they were, standing together, embodying courage, compassion, and unwavering moral authority. They arrived at an overlook, the city stretched below, glimmering with light and life. Hawk guided Micah to the edge, letting him see the expanse. "See this city," he said. "It's full of stories, hardship, fear, loneliness. But it's also full of choices. Each one of us can stand for the right thing. You'll face hard nights, kid, but remember this moment. Loyalty and courage shine brighter than the darkest streets." Micah's small face lit up with realization. I want to be like that. Brave. Loyal. Protecting people. Hawk's eyes softened. "And you will. Because now, you know it's possible. You've seen it. And one day, you'll pass it on." The chapter mounted their Harleys again, engines rumbling with quiet authority. Micah followed, feeling the vibrations through his small hands, understanding in a visceral way that family could be chosen, loyalty could be taught, and courage could ripple through even the smallest acts. The streets ahead were no longer threatening. They were a canvas for action, protection, and moral strength. And as the boy rode among the bikers, he felt something he hadn't felt in weeks. A place in the world, a family he could trust, and the knowledge that courage was always louder than fear. The city's streets were awakening, the soft hum of morning traffic mixing with distant sirens and the occasional bark of a dog. Micah rode closely behind Hawk, the oversized jacket still draping over his small frame, and felt a strange mixture of exhilaration and nervousness. Today wasn't just another ride, it was a test, a lesson in trust and the fragile bridges between past hurts and future courage. Hawk led them to a small community center tucked between two dilapidated buildings. Its walls bore graffiti, peeling paint, and signs of neglect. But inside, the smell of warm bread, cleaning supplies, and freshly brewed coffee spoke of hope quietly maintained. "This place," Hawk explained, "is where a lot of kids like you come when life streets feel impossible. Some have nowhere to go, just like you did. But you're not alone here, not anymore." Micah's eyes darted to the volunteers, kind, strong, patient faces, some older, some barely older than him. He had never imagined a place where adults didn't judge him, didn't yell, didn't make him feel small. Ryder knelt beside him. "Trust isn't automatic," he said softly. "It's earned over time. But it's also reciprocal. You have to let people see you're willing to be helped. That's courage too." Micah swallowed, remembering the nights of hunger, fear, and cold. I don't know if I can trust anyone," he admitted, voice barely above a whisper. Hawk placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You just did. You trusted us enough to ask for help. And that's the hardest part. Once you take that step, everything else, food, warmth, safety, follows." A volunteer approached with a warm blanket and a small backpack filled with essentials. Micah's hands trembled as he accepted it, realizing that protection wasn't just a feeling, it was tangible. These people, these bikers, and the community they had inspired, were now tangible allies in a world that had seemed unrelentingly harsh. Hawk guided Micah to a small room filled with toys, books, and art supplies. "Everyone here has a story. Some hard, some heartbreaking. But they're also alive, learning, and trusting again. You can do that too. And we'll be here to show you how." As the bikers quietly surveyed the scene, the chapter's unity was palpable. No one spoke unnecessarily, their silence carried weight, a protective aura around the boy and the center. Even Jace, who rarely displayed emotion, nodded once, approvingly. The message was clear: loyalty, courage, and moral responsibility extend beyond mere protection. They are about shaping lives, building trust, and creating stability where chaos once reigned. Micah's gaze softened as he realized the extent of the chapter's influence. Their power wasn't in intimidation or fear, it was in empathy, guidance, and the unwavering willingness to stand up for someone who couldn't stand for themselves. Ryder leaned closer. "See that kid over there painting? He's been here for months. Didn't trust anyone at first. Look at him now. That could be you, learning to trust, learning to be brave, learning to be part of a family you choose. Micah's small smile grew tentative but real. I think I want that, he whispered. I want to try. Hawk's eyes softened. And you will. It won't happen all at once. Trust takes time, courage grows with practice, and family isn't always born, it's chosen. You're part of ours now, Micah. And we'll be with you every step of the way. The morning sunlight poured through the cracked windows, illuminating the boy, the bikers, and the center in golden warmth. The city outside remained harsh and unyielding, but inside, a small corner of the world had transformed. Fear had been met with courage, loneliness with loyalty, and desperation with protection. As the chapter prepared to leave, Micah watched them mount their Harleys, the engines humming like a heartbeat. He realized something profound. The biker's presence wasn't just temporary, it had instilled a moral compass, a template for courage, loyalty, and hope that would guide him long after the engines faded into the distance. By mid-afternoon, the city streets had warmed under the sun, but tension lingered like a shadow. Micah had begun to settle into the rhythm of safety, but Kane and Hawk knew better than to assume the world would wait patiently for trust to grow. Danger had a way of finding the vulnerable, and they weren't about to let it touch the boy again. As the chapter rode back toward the alley where Micah had first tried to steal the jacket, a familiar figure lurked near the corner, a man in a dark hoodie, watching with ill intent. He stepped forward as the bikers approached, a cigarette dangling loosely from his fingers, and a sneer forming on his face. That boy, he's mine, the man spat, voice sharp and dripping with menace. I see you've spoiled him with your fancy leather and hero stories. Too bad I don't play nice. Hawk's eyes narrowed. You don't get to threaten him. Not today. Not ever. Step back. The man laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. And if I don't? Ryder and Jace subtly shifted forward, positioning themselves between the man and Micah, engines rumbling softly like a warning. Every member of the chapter radiated calm yet palpable authority, a wall of loyalty and moral strength that the man could neither intimidate nor ignore. Micah's small voice trembled. They are with me. Hawk crouched beside him. They've got your back. And I've got yours. You don't have to do this alone. The man hesitated, realizing he was facing not just one biker, but an entire chapter united by principle, loyalty, and the courage to protect the innocent. Every tattooed arm, every lined face, every pair of watchful eyes told a story. Attempts at intimidation had no place here. Seeing the hesitation, Kane stepped closer, voice low and commanding. Listen carefully. You walk away, and nothing happens. You stay, and you'll face consequences you cannot imagine. Not because we want to hurt you, but because loyalty, courage, and moral strength will not allow harm to touch someone under our protection. The man's bravado faltered. Sweat ran down his temple. For the first time, he saw the bikers not as thugs, but as a living shield, a brotherhood whose moral authority outweighed fear or aggression. Ryder added softly, it's simple. He's not alone. He's never alone when people choose to stand for him. That's the bond we're offering. You can't break it. Micah's small hand found Hawk's, squeezing tightly. I'm not scared anymore, he whispered. The man's lips trembled as he took a step back, finally retreating into the shadows. The bikers maintained their positions until he was gone, ensuring the threat was truly neutralized. Only then did they release the tension, engines sighing softly in unison. Hawk turned to Micah. See that? Courage isn't always about fighting. Sometimes it's about showing up, standing firm, and letting people know that loyalty and protection are stronger than fear. Micah's eyes sparkled with a mix of awe and gratitude. They really are like a family, he said softly. They are, Kane agreed. Family is chosen, kid. Sometimes it's blood, sometimes it's loyalty, and sometimes it's people who refuse to let the world break you. Tonight, you've seen both courage and protection in action. And you're part of it now. The afternoon sunlight reflected off the wet asphalt, glinting like gold, as the chapter mounted their Harleys. Engines hummed, a steady, protective rhythm. Micah watched them, understanding for the first time that safety, loyalty, and courage weren't fleeting. They were bonds forged in action, unwavering and unbreakable. As they rode off, the boy felt a warmth beyond the borrowed leather of the jacket, a warmth of trust, protection, and belonging. The city remained full of danger, but now he carried a shield far stronger than fear, the unbreakable bond of loyalty, courage, and moral strength. The sun had climbed higher, bathing the streets in a warm, forgiving glow. Micah sat on the curb outside the community center, jacket snug over his shoulders, still adjusting to the weight of both fabric and the profound realization that he was no longer alone. The city hummed around him, bustling, indifferent, but inside him, a quiet calm had taken root. Hawk, Kane, Ryder, and the rest of the chapter gathered nearby, engines idling softly as they watched the boy, their expressions a blend of pride and protective vigilance. Today had not only been about shielding Micah from immediate danger, it had been about teaching him trust, loyalty, courage, and the strength that comes from being part of something bigger than oneself. Ryder knelt beside the boy, voice gentle. "You've seen it now. Loyalty isn't just a word. It's standing up when others can't. Protection isn't just about muscle, it's about moral courage, making sure the world treats people fairly." Micah nodded, eyes wide and thoughtful. I understand. I think I get it now." Hawk smiled softly. "Good. You'll carry this lesson with you. Remember, courage is more than facing danger. It's asking for help, trusting the right people, and standing for what's right. And you've done all three." The chapter mounted their Harleys once more, the engines rumbling like a heartbeat of solidarity. Before leaving, Kane added, "The city's full of challenges. But now you know something important. You're never truly alone. Family, loyalty, and courage are choices people make every day, and tonight, you saw them in action." Micah watched as the bikers disappeared down the street, the sound of engines fading, leaving behind more than the scent of leather and gasoline. They had left him with protection, hope, and a living example of moral strength that would guide him through every difficult night to come. He hugged his jacket tightly, a small smile forming. The streets were still real, still unpredictable, but for the first time, he felt equipped to face them, not with fear, but with courage and trust in those willing to stand with him. Courage is more than facing danger. It's asking for help and trusting those who act with moral strength. Protection isn't only physical, it's loyalty, vigilance, and standing up for the vulnerable. Even the smallest act of kindness can ripple into life-changing outcomes. Family is not always born. It can be chosen through trust, loyalty, and shared courage. True bravery inspires others and transforms fear into hope, one action at a time. When moral strength meets action, lives once lost in darkness can find light, safety, and belonging.